dying person into a glass case and sealed that case to see whether the departure of the soul would crack the glass. However, the soul left the body. Without the glass, without that glass box getting cracked. Being subtle, the soul did not need physical space for its movement. Being subtler than the material energy, the soul is also inconceivable to our intellect. Kathopanishads, one of the very famous Upanishad told to Nachiketa by none other than the great god of death, Yama. In that it is stated, Indriyebhyah parahyartha artebhyascha param manaha. Indriyebhyah parahyartha artebhyascha param manaha manasastu para buddhihi buddhiratma mahan paraha. So 1:3:10 verse 29. So in Upanishad it is told that beyond the senses are the objects of the senses. Subtler than the objects of the senses is the mind. Beyond this mind, our mind is the intellect. And subtler than the intellect is our soul, the Atman. So now you can imagine the material intellect can only comprehend material concepts, but can never reach the divine soul by the power of its contemplation. As a result, knowledge of the self requires external sources, which are the scriptures and the help of the Guru. So the meaning is, you cannot comprehend, you cannot through the senses come to know about the soul. Now going forward into the deeper aspects of this verse, the 25th verse of Bhagavad Gita. This Atman avyakyoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitam arhasi. So in this verse, Lord Krishna is telling that the Atman is said to be unmanifested beyond thought, beyond modification. Knowing it as such, it is not proper for you to grieve. So after knowing its true nature, Arjuna, and through Arjuna, Lord Krishna is telling, you should never grieve over it. For anything, for any reason, you should not grieve. You are of the nature of Atman, why should you grieve? Now, this Atman is said to be unmanifested. We can't feel the touch of the Atman anywhere. Avyakta means unmanifested. Similarly, achintya, unthinkable. You cannot catch it with a piece of thought. You cannot conceptualize it. Everything in the world we try to catch through two sources. What is that? One is thought, the other is speech. Once you give a speech and a thought to enclose something, you see, you understand that thing. We can do this with everything in the world. But with regard to the Atman, speech and thought recoil, unable to touch it. That is why it is unthinkable. Now, Brihadaranya Upanishad, there is a statement that is why it is unthinkable. Brihadaranya Upanishad 147 spoke of realizing the Atman in these words. Atma iti eva upasita. So on that, Sri Shankaracharya, Bhagavan Shankaracharya comments, the use of particular iti, thus along with the word Atman or self to which you referred in the text, only signifies that the truth of the Atman is really beyond the scope of term and the concept of self. Otherwise, the Shruti, the highest scriptures, would only say one should meditate upon the Atman. We have to use some word, so we use the word Atman. But don't run away. Atman is not a thing. It is eternal consciousness behind all things. That is stressed again and again. So, the term used here, avyaktoyam, it cannot become vyakta, manifested by these senses. Achintyoyam. So, one beautiful verse demonstrating the profound depth of the psychological insight occurs in a verse in the Ashtavakra Gita. Achintyam chintyamanopi chintarupam bhajatyasau. So in the Ashtavakra Gita, it is told, when you think of the unthinkable, you resort to a piece of thought only. Could you catch this statement of Ashtavakra Gita? When you think of the unthinkable, you resort to a piece of thought only. When you think of the unthinkable, you don't catch that unthinkable at all. You just formulate a thought, that is all. It is an object, but Atman can never become an object. Why? Because it is the eternal subject. Thought is only an object. This is the unthinkable self, eternal self. Now, this kind of subtle knowledge of these deep realities you get not only in Indian literature, but also in the Chinese philosophy of Tao, in Zen Buddhism. Now, how this Zen Buddhism has come, the word Zen is the term come from the Sanskrit word dhyana. Dhyana has become Zen. And in some of the writings of Christian and also in the Muslim mystics, Sufi saints, but not in their official religions or formal religions, there is this truth beyond all conceptualization. That is the Atman, eternal self, the subject, the seer, and not an object. Similarly, avikaryoyam, this is unchangeable. The whole world is changeable. It is constantly in a state of flux. It is changing. But this Atman, ourself, that is ourself and yourself, that is our real nature, is unchangeable. The external world is simply a tissue of change. But this Atman, Paramatman or Parabrahman or God never changes, eternally the same. That is the one truth the world is seeking. What is that eternal changeless reality? Formerly, we use the word God for it. But the word God has become involved in so many controversies. And ultimately, some people said, we don't want God. They became atheists or agnostics. In fact, it was the German philosopher in the last century who said God is dead. Well, that kind of God has no status at all. But Vedantic, the concept of God in Hinduism, the Vedantic God is much, much higher than the Western concept of God. What is that? It is the eternal self, Sat Chit Ananda. But in the Western concept, God is a formless, something like with attributes, person sitting on the cloud. When he is formless, why should he sit on a cloud? On a throne, he is sitting on the clouds, and with scepter and some other things, he can punish you if you do wrong, and he can reward you with heaven if you do good things. That is the concept, that's all. They tell their God is formless, but it is with attributes. But our concept of God in Hinduism, it has gone beyond all these concepts. That is Nirakara Nirguna. It is formless, attributeless, and much, much more than this. So, here we can see that the Lord in Hinduism and in Vedantic terms, it is described as Sat Chit Ananda, infinite existence, absolute, infinite consciousness, absolute, infinite bliss, absolute. So when you tell existence, what is the term existence meaning here? I exist, you exist, this whole universe exists, so many other things exist. The sum total of all the existence, and beyond that, the totality of existence, even beyond that, much, much more than that, that is God. And consciousness, knowledge, a lower aspect of consciousness is knowledge. So knowledge is also lower than consciousness. So the Lord is termed as infinite consciousness, absolute. We get this life, knowledge, everything. Because if you have to have the knowledge, knowledge is objectification. God is beyond that, is consciousness. He is the one eternal subject who objectifies everything, who can objectify. He is the eternal subject. Then he is bliss absolute, infinite bliss absolute. So that is the concept of God in Hinduism, not a punishing God and rewarding God. So at the ordinary level, you see God with Abhaya Hasta and Varada Hasta, giving boon, is a boon giving mission. So when we are at the lower stage of evolution, we need all those concepts, but we have to outgrow these things, we have to come up. So that freedom is given in Hinduism. It's a step-by-step progress. That's why Swami Vivekananda tells in Hinduism, in Vedanta, the very first condition of spirituality is liberty, freedom. So they give lot of freedom. You can. That's why Ramakrishna Paramahamsa told, as many people, so many paths. From wherever you are, you think of that God in that fashion and gradually grow. So that is the idea. That is Vedanta. That is Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism. So our concept of God is something very high. That's why you can see in Western concept, when they do not understand this, they become atheists, agnostics. But it doesn't happen in our Vedantic term. Even atheism, agnosticism also has a place. They are given the place of the rishis. So it's a stage. Atheism is also a stage in evolution in Hinduism. They are also given a place. The Charvakas, they don't believe in God. They are given the place of the rishis. Buddhism and Jainism, they don't believe in God and goddesses as we think. But they are also studied. They are given a place. So like that, the concept of God and the progress in spiritual life is something very much evolved and is in a different state in Vedanta. So now you can see it is the eternal self. It is always the witness of every event. Every yes and no is watched by the eternal self. Therefore, this has got a strong foundation in experience in your own self. This was the experience of the great Ramana Maharshi had when he was a boy of 16 or 17 in Madurai, very near to that Madurai Meenakshi temple. There was the relatives' house of Ramana Maharshi's relatives. As a young boy, he stayed there for his studies. So he had the first and last spiritual experience there of his, when he tells, when he felt I'm going to die, he had the experience of death. Ramana Maharshi becoming frightened, came home, lay down on his room on the floor and said to himself, I'm dying, I'm dying. And he imitated the whole experience of death. Yes, I am just dying and I am dead. Then he found to his great joy that he was still there to watch his death. I am deathless. The one who watches my death is always there. That is my true self. That was his first and last spiritual experience according to his own words. Of course, he got it so easily because he had high spiritual development earlier with good vasanas and samskaras. We may not get it so easily. All the people have to struggle hard to get that experience. But Ramana Maharshi might have struggled earlier in his earlier life and it continued. But even if you get a glimpse of the truth, yes, there is some truth in it. Work on it. As Swami Vivekananda tells, we are moving not from falsehood to truth, but we are moving from lower truth to higher truth. So, if you got a glimpse, yes, there is some truth in it. Work on that. That much is not enough for us to begin with. So, tasmadevam viditvainam, knowing him to be like this, na anushochitum arhasi, it is not fit for you to experience grief. Now, as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa tells, egiye jao, go forward, go forward. You have to experience the higher things. Just a little glimpse is not enough. Go forward, go forward. So there is much to be attained. So now in this same verse, that is avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. We shall go and study this verse from a different perspective, from a different angle. Now, Lord Krishna tells that this Atman is imperceptible. This is inconceivable. This is unchangeable. Now, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa tells in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna that everything in this world has become uchishta. You know the meaning of uchishta, juta. In Hindi it is a juta. So whatever it has been tasted by this tongue or the mouth, whatever is told of in this mouth is called uchishta. Whatever has been expressed through the words, it can be called as uchishta. But nobody can limit this Atman or God by the mouth. That's why the only thing which has not become uchishta is this Atmavastu or Paramatmavastu or Parabrahmavastu. Whatever you may try, you cannot completely comprehend or tell it because it is the thought from which it becomes the words. What is words? How do we speak? Because it is a thought within us which is expressed in the form of words. So, this Atman is beyond even thought. It cannot be conceived. Subtler. As such, thought is subtler, and it is subtler than this. Then there is a question of it being comprehended or covered by the words, our mouth. So, it cannot become uchishta at all, juta. So now that's why Lord Krishna is telling it is imperceptible. This is inconceivable. This is unchangeable. It is said, therefore, having known this Atman in this manner, you should not grieve. In this verse, Lord Krishna concludes the Atmaswarupa discussion. Many times we have told from the verse 12 of the second chapter, the real Bhagavad Gita starts. And Krishna is explaining about the Atman. He begins from the verse 12 to 25. We have the wonderful description of the nature of Atman. So here in this 25th verse, Lord Krishna concludes the Atmaswarupa. So if you want to contemplate, you want to meditate on your real nature. In some of the earlier classes I had told, there should be shift from the identification of yourself. We all now identify with our individuality or ego or bundle of samskaras or with this body mind complex. So that individuality has to shift. Earlier we were telling that Atman, this Atman, that is Atman, this is the nature. Now the identity has to shift. While you are now thinking, I am that. That is my nature. That is my true nature. I am the Atman. So that is the Vedantic meditation. Everything should be identified with this wonderful real nature of ours, that is Atman. So now, until now, whatever has been told from 12th verse to the 25th verse, it is all different nature of Atman. Lord Krishna has described of what is our true nature. So it is worthy of meditation. You should take up one by one and meditate and get joy out of it. So here we will try to recapitulate all that what Lord Krishna has told in the earlier verses too. So it is winding up shloka verse. The main ideas are repetition, which we have seen in the previous verses, because everything is recorded. It's on our YouTube channel from the 25th verse, from the 12th verse to the 25th verse. So you can go through that if you want to know the real nature, the Atman, what Lord Krishna has explained. It is for our meditation. So you can take up one by one that nature and think on it, meditate, cogitate on it, manana, shravana, manana, then nididhyasana. So repetition of what has been told earlier from the 12th verse. So we will just revise it. We will again go through that, not in detail, but a bird's eye view briefly. Now, avyaktaha means not available for the organs of perception. That is indriya gochara. It is not indriya gochara. Because, why is it? Because the 5 organs of senses can experience 5 sensory properties only. The ears can perceive something which has got sound, that's all. The eyes can perceive something which has form and color. The nose can perceive something which has smell. The tongue can perceive something which has taste. The skin can perceive something which has got touch. What about ourself, the Atman or God or Paramatma? So there is one verse in the scripture. What is that? Ashabdam, asparsham, arupam, avyayam, tatha arasam, nityam, agandha. So that is Atman, which is, that is the Atma Swarupa or Atma, the self or Paramatman is free from Shabda. That's why it's called Ashabda. Sparsha, that's the nature which can be conceived by the skin. Shabda is from the ears. Rupa is from the eyes. Rasa is from the tongue or the mouth. Then Gandha is from the nose. These 5 properties belong to matter. They are the corresponding properties of the 5 elements Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. They belong to the Panchabhutas. 5 elements. If you go through Tattva Bodha, Akasha has got Shabda. Vayu has got Shabda and Sparsha. Agni has got Shabda, Sparsha and Rupa. Jala, that is water, has got Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa and Rasa. Prithvi, that is the earth, has got Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha, all the 5 elements. 5 elements have got these 5 properties. Matter alone has all these properties. And our true nature, the Atman or Paramatman or God, being non-material, it can never be perceived. It cannot be conceived, conceptualized by our senses. That is what Lord Krishna is telling us. So it cannot be perceived. Therefore, avyaktaha. And therefore, it is achintyaha. It cannot be thought of. It cannot be conceptualized by our thoughts even. Why alone? Indriyas. It cannot be even comprehended by our thoughts too. If I cannot perceive that, I cannot even conceive it. Because all our concepts are based on our perceptual experience. When it is not perceptually available, how can you think of that? Try to imagine Atman or God which is free from sound. People say, in my meditation I tried to imagine Atman without sound, without form. Then we end up totally blank and you may go to sleep also because it is all darkness, total blank. Therefore, you will ever arrive, if you go to think of Atman without this sparsha, rupa, rasa and other things, you will only arrive at blankness. Mind cannot conceive, think of it at all. Then how to think of it? What do you think of? Is not Atman. Then what is this God or Atman? The thinker is Atman. He is the subject. He is not the object. You cannot objectify him. He is the eternal subject. The thinker is Atman. So it is never thought, but it is ever the thinker. It is never thought of. It cannot be thought of, but it is ever the thinker. Never the object, it's ever the subject. Therefore, Krishna is using the term achintyaha. Then what is the next term Lord Krishna has used here is avikarya. It is free from shadvikaras. We have studied about that, all that 6 type of changes from the womb to the tomb. We have seen all that 6 type of changes. These are all repetitions, we have heard it. If you go to the earlier shlokas, you can get that shadvikara. So we will just tell that Atman is beyond this shadvikaras, all that change from the existence in the womb, then it is born, then it changes, then again it decays, asti, bhati, all those things we have studied. Parinamate, viparinamate, jayate, vartate, all those things, shadvikaras. So we have seen these ideas before, that avyaktaha and achintyaha alone is called previously as aprameya. We described it as aprameya. There is one temple also, Aprameya Swami. Aprameya means is avyaktaha plus achintyaha. And therefore, Lord Krishna concludes here, Arjuna, having known these facts, when you have come to know about the nature of Atman, yourself, it is the same thing in the others too. The same Atman is present in Bhishmacharya, in Dronacharya, in Kripacharya, in everybody your kith and kin, whom you are thinking that you may kill them. So that was also explained in the earlier verses. So in all of them too, it is the same Atman which cannot be destroyed, which cannot be killed. It is existing. So how shall we take it into our life? In me and in my close people, all the people, relatives, father, mother, everybody, it is the same Lord who is present. So if that is concept, if you comprehend that, then how can you grieve? The body changes, as we earlier just 2 verses earlier we have seen. It is just like changing the death, or the birth is just like changing the old worn out garment. That's why do you grieve? There is no reason to grieve. That is what Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna. Therefore Lord Krishna concludes, Arjuna, having known all these facts about your own self and the self which is present in everybody else, that you are Atman and I am Atman, Bhishma is Atma, Drona is Atma, you cannot kill the Atma, you cannot destroy. You cannot destroy, nobody can destroy the Atman which is within you. Neither you can be killed, nor those people can be killed. because they are all of this nature of self. Drona is also Atmaswarupa. Bhishmacharya is also Atmaswarupa. You cannot kill as Atman. You can kill only their bodies. That's why neither are you going to get, if you are afraid that if you fight you will get punya or papa, killing your own guru, killing your own grandsire. Therefore, it doesn't happen. You are not getting, because if you perceive them as Atman, then you are neither going, you will become the akarta. You will get that, you will lose that sense of agency, sense of doership, enjoyership. So then there is no question of getting punya or papa. So therefore, why do you cry? Why do you grieve? There is no scope for you to cry now. There is no scope for you to grieve. Do not grieve. Tasmat evam viditva. Having known your real self or Atman very clearly, shochitum na harhasi. You don't have the right to grieve. That is what Lord Krishna, somebody I think had asked me the question in two classes during the last or the other last class I had been asked. Then should we not cry if some near and dear ones are having some problem? You can cry. There is no, nobody will stop. But Lord, I am just repeating what Lord Krishna is telling. Because why you cannot grieve is if you wrongly think of the people as the body and the bundle of characters. It's but natural. You will get grief. So, evam viditva, having known clearly that everybody has that consciousness and they are not dead, they cannot die, nobody can destroy them. You should not grieve over any person. Nobody deserves grief in life. So do not worry. Then see the word used by Lord Krishna. Anushochitum na anushochitum arhasi. So arhasi means you don't have the right at all to grieve. You should not grieve over any person or anything. But by grieving, can you change the fact? That's why that earlier question I told. If you can bring back the person, bring back that body which has been destroyed by worrying and crying, do that. But it is highly impossible to bring back that body again once it is dead. So what is the use of grieving? So evam viditva, having this knowledge, then you will not get grief at all. Externally, you may show the grief and other things, because in the social life you have to be sorrowful when somebody is suffering. Okay, to please the society you have to do all those things, but internally you need not grieve. There is a statement, you should respond, you should not worry. That's what Lord Krishna is telling. Do not worry, O Arjuna. You should be concerned, you should not be worried. Be concerned, do the duty, what is to be done. How can you help them to bring down the sorrow and other things of all the other people who are grieving? That's your duty. So do that. Perform your duty. Be concerned, but don't be worried. That's what the Lord is telling. Na anushochitum arhasi. Should not grieve over any person. Nobody deserves grief in life. If you can help someone, do that. It's wonderful. But by simply grieving, you are not changing any fact. The mortal body is not going to come back by shedding tears. The immortal self, that is the real nature, is not going to die too. If the mortal body cannot come back, and the immortal soul cannot be destroyed, it will never die, then why are you grieving? Why are you shedding tears? Both the facts cannot be changed. So understanding this, Evam viditva na anushochitum arhasi. You are not fit to grieve. You should never grieve. So do whatever has to be done in the situation. That's why do not worry, but be concerned. Therefore, Lord Krishna is telling Shochitum na arhasi. Now go back to the introductory verses. Gatasoon agatasoonscha nanu shochanti panditaha. So in the beginning, Lord Krishna is told, Gatasoon agatasoonscha nanu shochanti panditaha. Wise people never grieve. If you understand this fact, if you know the real nature of Atman, you too become wise. You are a man of wisdom, realized soul. If you understand this Atman, even if you understand it intellectually, you will not grieve. If you realize it, if you realize the Atman, then there is no question of grief at all. But even if you understand that intellectually too, there is no grief. That's why Gatasoon agatasoonscha nanu shoshanti panditaha. The wise people will never grieve. Men of wisdom. If you understand this fact, you are also wise. If you understand Atman, you are also having wisdom. Then why do you grieve at all? So grief is foolishness. Grief is ignorance. So grieving, worrying is sign of ignorance. And also grief is delusion. Now, again, we will go to the 24th verse. Achedyoyam madahyoyam akledyo shoshevacha nitya sarvagata hastanaho acholoyam sanatanaha. The 24th verse we have seen this. Then now we have studied this 25th verse. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. This is the 25th verse. Lord Krishna wants to help Arjuna to get out of his sorrow. That's why the whole Bhagavad Gita was given through that. Yeah, Krishna is taking up the things in the battlefield, but that is the context. That's all. It's contextual here for the battlefield. He is taking up all these death and other things. But how can we bring that to our life? All the other situation, whatever we are, for anything for that sake, we should not worry. We should be concerned. We should not unnecessarily being in grief. So that's whatever situation may be for things or persons, there is no need to grieve. But what are you supposed to do? The duties you to perform. Now you are a Kshatriya, you are a warrior. So to do the righteous battle, do that. So what has the other person be? Whichever stages of life you are, if you are a householder, do that duty of yours properly. Look after your parents, your wife and children, or husband, or whatever. Properly do your duty. There is no, yes, for some times, for the sake of social behavior, shed some tears for the people who are gone, then quickly come out of it and start working. Do your duty, what is to be done. Yes, people who are dead, start performing their shraddha so that will help them to go forward. Wherever they are, the subtle body will move forward. So do your duty, go forward. That's why through through Arjuna, Lord Krishna, he's telling Arjuna to fight that righteous battle. But for us, to perform our duties, whichever stage you are, whether you are a householder, whether you are a monk, whether you are a student, whether you are a businessman, a merchant, do your duty, go forward. There is nothing to grieve. You don't have the right to grieve. It is delusion. It is maya. It is ignorance. Grief comes out of delusion or maya, avidya. That's why if you understand the real nature of Atman, there is no question of worrying at all. So do not worry. So that's what Lord Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna. Now fight, do your duty. Do not go on worrying and grieving. So now, in three different perspectives, Lord Krishna explains these teachings to Arjuna from three different levels. What is that? Now he is telling him, fighting the war is his Swadharma. So he is giving the teaching from three different levels for Arjuna. One is Adhyatmika Drishti, that is a philosophical level. The other is Dharmika Drishti, from the ethical and the moral level. And the third is from the worldly level, Laukika Drishti, from the practical worldly level. So at this three level, Lord Krishna is taking up this matter and telling, if you see, look at it from any of these three levels, you should perform your duty well and go forward. You should never unnecessarily unduly worry about the past. We should never feel anxious about the future. So be in the present, work with mindfulness, work with alertness, concentration. What is in your hand now? As of now, learn to live in the present. So just like Swami Vivekananda used to tell, that what we are today is the result of our past actions. If that is the case, then whatever we do now will decide our future. Whatever we do now decides our future. So there is no need to worry about the past, nor be anxious about the future. Learn to work properly now. So you are the maker of your destiny. The present work decides your future. So why are you anxious about the future? Why are you worried about the past? Start working hard. Do your duties now. That will decide your future. So do not waste your energy over worrying or grieving. That is what Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna. Through that, he is also telling us, please do not grieve for anything in life. Do not be worried for anything in life. Do your duties properly. What is to be done now? Live in the present. Be mindful of all your actions. So, at three different levels, Lord Krishna is taking Arjuna. As I told you, from the Adhyatmika Drishti, philosophical level. The other is Dharmika Drishti, from the moral level or ethical level. And the third is Laukika Drishti, from practical worldly level. Now, of this, the first approach we saw, even now we saw, that is philosophical approach, in which Lord Krishna gives his Atmagnana, the nature of Atman, the true nature of every individual. He is talking about that in detail from the 12th verse to the 25th verse, which we have studied all through now. For many days we are studying that. Now, the consciousness, the Chaitanya Swarupa of and our physical personality, our emotional personality, as well as our intellectual personality. So what is true? The conscious principle, the Chaitanya Swarupa, is the only true personality. The other, like the emotional personality, intellectual personality, and the physical body, is only incidental features. None of them is our real nature. And then Lord Krishna talked about the nature of that Chaitanya, the real nature. First, he pointed out that Atma is eternal, Nityaha. Then he pointed out that Atma is Satyaha, that consciousness is independently existent. It does not depend upon matter or depend upon anything for its existence. Then Krishna explained about Atma is Sarvagataha. Consciousness pervades everywhere. There is no place where the Lord doesn't exist. It is not a localized phenomena. It is unlocated principle, unlike the body. Then fourthly, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, Atma is aprameya, that this consciousness can never be experienced as an object through our senses. It cannot be objectified. Why? Because it is the ever experiencer. It is ever the subject. That's why it is aprameya. Then fifthly, Lord Krishna explained all through these verses that this consciousness is akarta and abhokta. Akarta means non-doer, it doesn't do anything. Abhokta means doesn't enjoy papa or punya, good or bad, pain or pleasure. It does not perform any action and therefore does not have papa and punya. It is karma adhitaha, karma phala api adhitaha cha. And then sixthly and finally, Lord Krishna told that Atma is nirvikaraha, that consciousness is not subject to any of the changes. We have seen our physical body, our mind, our ego, personality, everything is changing. Jayate, vardate, viparinamate, all those things, old age, death, everything we have seen, the Shad Vikaras. So, the sixth thing about our consciousness or Atman or the real nature of God is nirvikaraha, that consciousness is not subject to any change. Even when we talk about higher state of consciousness, people use this word for communication. That higher state of consciousness and lower state of consciousness. According to scriptures, there is no higher or lower states of consciousness, because if consciousness is also subject to states, higher and lower, then indirectly it means that it is subject to modification. Therefore, if at all we have to use the word higher and lower, it is not for the Atman or consciousness. The higher or lower state is not for the state of the consciousness or the Atman. It is only the state of our mind. The mind can be in a higher state when the thoughts are noble and we have the sattva pradhanya in our mind. When there is more sattva in our mind. And the mind can be in an intermediary state when the thoughts are rajasic. When there is predominance of rajas, the mind can be in a lower state when the thoughts are tamasic. Therefore, the mind and thoughts can have superior and inferior states. That's why you can feel higher consciousness and lower consciousness. But consciousness itself doesn't have any modifications or change. There is no such thing from the standpoint of Shastra as higher or lower state of consciousness, because consciousness or Atman or Paramatman or the real nature of God, that is yourself, is nirvikaraha. Now Lord Krishna concludes this teaching. As I told you, that's why we recapitulated, we revised from the 12th to this 25th verse about the nature of Atman. Arjuna was taken through, by which we also got so much of knowledge through Arjuna. Partho vatsaha sudihi bhokta dugdham gopalanandanaha sarvopanishado gavo. So all the Upanishads, the knowledge of Vedas and the Vedanta is like the cow. Who is the milkman? Dogdha Gopalanandana, Lord Krishna. And who was Arjuna? The calf. Arjuna has been used by the Lord as a calf to milk the cow from the Upanishad. And who are the consumers? Who is getting the nourishment of the milk? Who are taking the milk? It's we. We got that milk, that knowledge of Atman. So using this Kurukshetra battle, using Arjuna, the Lord has given us from 30,000 years. So many people have enjoyed this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and they have realized the Lord. They have found so much of peace. See, this verse is enough. Na anushochitam arhasi. Do not grieve. There is no reason for you to grieve. So all our grief is gone. All our worry is gone if we always think of these words of the Lord. So now Krishna is concluding this teaching, coming to this Laukika Drishti. From the practical point, he is telling Arjuna, you should understand that you are the Atman, the consciousness. And not only you are Atman, you are that, your nature is that eternal, or what do you call that, of the nature of consciousness, but also Bhishmacharya, Dronacharya, all the other people in this battlefield are Atmasvarupa. But their external body is only a temporary vesture. Even that was stated in some of the earlier shlokas, Vasamsi Jirnani Yata Vihaya. All of them in reality are Atman, You cannot kill them. Nobody can kill them. Nobody can kill you. There is no question of killing anyone. Then where is the question of grieving? And once you understand this principle from this higher state, then you can understand this, your real nature. So you will be free of all guilts. That guilt is now making you grieve, worry. So Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna not to grieve. Do your duty. Do the present duty that you, as a soldier you have to fight. If you are in the working in an office as a clerk, you have to work. Do your work. If you are a student, you have to study. There is no reason to worry or grieve. Do your duty. Once you understand this higher tattva, you will be free from all guilt, and therefore Lord Krishna concludes in this verse, 25th verse, Tasmadevam viditva, having known that I am Atmaswarupa, consciousness, and all the others who are here in the battlefield are with me in the ordinary stages of life, in your family, everywhere. They are all Atmaswarupas. They are of the nature of Paramatma Swarupa, Parabrahma Swarupa. Nanu shochitam arhasi. You should not grieve. You should not shirk your duty. So you should not grieve means you have to do your duty. That is the positive and practical aspect. Do not grieve means you have to do your duty. Do not worry means give up that worry and start working for the welfare of the people and the society. That is what Lord Krishna is telling. So fight the battle of life. There Arjuna is to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. But here we have to fight. What is the fight for us? We are not soldiers. So fight the battle of your life. Fight with external circumstances which is trying to suppress you. Fight with those circumstances. Fight with the internal enemies which are there within you in the form of Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya, Lobha. So na anushochitam arhasi means do not just be idle and sitting and grieving and worrying and brooding. As Swami Vivekananda makes a beautiful statement. The remedy for weakness is not brooding over weakness but to think of strength. Think positively. Now Lord Krishna has given us the thought of strength about our true nature consciousness. Think of that. Go forward. Do not worry. Do not grieve. Do your duty. You should not grieve. You should not shirk your duty. That's what Lord is trying to give us. So we will, in the next class, we will try to deal with some other aspect from a different angle. We will study this same verse and also go to the next verse, that is the 26th verse. So the next class we'll be studying some more of this 25th verse, and also we will go to the 26th verse also. So we will end our conversation now, and it's time for question and answer. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer it now. Is there any questions? Can it be made bigger, the question and answer session? Yeah, there's no question. We will end the class by one of the verses on the meditation of Bhagavad Gita. Tomorrow, it is Sunday, early morning at 6:30, that is South African Standard Time, 6:30, and Indian Standard Time, it will be 10 o'clock. We will have the study of Great Master. Monday, also early in the morning, we will have the study of the Great Master at 6:30 in the morning. Then Sunday at 9:30 South African time, we have the Hinduism for the children, the class of Hinduism for children. And also in the same class, we'll be teaching the children the study of Sanskrit alphabet and some few words. Then there'll be some demonstration and also words about yoga, hatha yoga and pranayama. Other than that, in the evening we have our satsangs. Monday in the evening at 6 o'clock we have the study of puja, significance of puja, signs of worship. Tuesday we have the Viveka Chudamani, the study of crushed jewel of discrimination written by the Prakarana Grantha, the text manual of Vedanta written by none other than the great Bhagavan Shankaracharya. Then Wednesday again we have the Bhagavad Gita. Thursday, Friday early morning we'll be having the study of Great Master. All of you are welcome to all this discussion. So we will end our today's discussion with the meditation verse on Bhagavad Gita. Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pankham Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.